So that's it, folks. The results are in. Congratulations to the BJP, Prime Minister Modi, and Party President Amit Shah. For the second time in a row, the BJP has won a clear majority in Parliament. This is a tremendous performance across the board. Here are 10 takeaways from this election. 1. The BJP is no longer only a northern and western Hindi heartland party. It has won everywhere north, south, east, west. There's been a 10% increase in the BJP's vote share to 41%, which is unprecedented for an incumbent government. 2. The alliance making ability of the BJP deserves credit. In Bihar and Maharashtra, they were willing to give up more seats than they needed to move ahead. Number 3. The left has moved right in West Bengal to vote for BJP to punish the perceived tyranny of Mamata Banerjee. This shows that there is no loyalty to political ideology in India. Number 4. Tamil Nadu, Punjab, Kerala, Jammu and Kashmir, Andhra Pradesh are the only states where the BJP has been soundly and utterly rejected. We'll need to analyze this in the coming days to understand why this is the case. Number 5. The Congress party has made no gains in 5 years despite massive unemployment and poor economic performance. The Congress, for the second consecutive term, does not even have the minimum 10% of seats in parliament to be considered the official opposition party. Number 6. The Congress needs to change course or risk being completely wiped out. Rahul Gandhi needs to resign from the party leadership. He has failed as Congress president. His loss of the Amethi seat signals the extent to which Mr. Gandhi has been rejected by India. Number 7. The Congress has been unable to form effective alliances. They threw away opportunities in Delhi, Haryana, UP, and West Bengal. Sonia Gandhi has failed as UPA chairperson and needs to resign from the party leadership and step away from politics. Priyanka Gandhi has failed too as General Secretary of East Uttar Pradesh and needs to reconsider her role in the party as well. Number 8. The Congress party has some tremendous young leaders across the country who should be given the opportunity to lead the party. The old guard of Gandhi family loyalists need to step aside. They must learn from the BJP on how the older generation is ruthlessly moved out of politics. Number 9. There are repercussions for state governments as well today. We will see the DMK coming back to power in Tamil Nadu and Jagan Reddy's YSR Congress in Andhra Pradesh. We may also be in for another election here in Karnataka in the not so distant future. And finally, as Joseph de Maistre says, every country gets the government that it deserves. So we fully deserve Narendra Modi and the BJP for the next 5 years. That's the election endgame from Nsoj. And with us today to discuss the elections and the outcome, we have very happy to have a veteran data analyst and political scientist who's interested in public policy, Mr. Ravinder. He's had the ringside view of many elections, state and national, and he's involved in social causes. Welcome to NSOJ, Mr. Ravinder.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And we also have our faculty member, Mr. Chetan Krasta, and we're going to engage in some conversation to make some sense of what this election is about. So why don't you heard the introductory piece, why don't you give us your preliminary thoughts and then we can take it from there.
Absolutely. I think it is undisputed that BJP has gotten a very solid mandate. Narendra Modi is definitely the unquestioned leader of BJP. And I think they probably have gotten seats. Their tally is much higher than anybody expected. They've come out even better than the exit polls. So it was, I would agree with some of the points that you made, and I would disagree with some of the points that you made. So maybe we can discuss on them as well. But broadly, I think we all need to, one, while accepting that BJP has a very clear mandate, I think it's very important to analyze what really happened. How did they get to these numbers? I agree, making effective coalitions was one. What was the form of elections that were run, right? If you look at it, it was more like a presidential form of election.
Yeah.
Um,
Just
it did
Modi versus Rahul Gandhi. That was the
exactly,
premise.
exactly, Modi versus Rahul Gandhi, and it was all about this great personality that has completely reformed India and that has fought wars, and maybe one person that himself went to the war and got the victory to India. And every candidate that fought for this party, or this coalition, um, was actually did not even have a face in this election.
Yes.
It was all Modi all over, right? um, what does it do to the democracy? What does it do to the parliamentary system of democracy? And what does it do to the quality of candidates that we are sending to the parliament? That is also something we as a country need to think about, because I don't think people by and large looked at the qualifications of the candidates, or their worth, to really cast vote for them. In cities like Bangalore, especially, if you asked anybody, many people did not even know who the candidate was. They would say, I'm going to vote for Modi, right? But, well, Modi does not do the work for you, right? Modi is sitting there, making policies, and maybe,
So that's
uh,
a right. I mean, is it time? This is a landmark moment in our democracy. Twice, second time consecutive. We have in consecutive terms
right.
a party with a single, with a clear majority,
Mhm.
and we don't have an opposition party effectively. So, is this the time for us to take a break and actually ask the question: do we still need to be in a parliamentary democracy? Is it better to move to a presidential form of government?
See, I think I disagree with that. I think the reason
Isn't
is,
it
I
more,
think
let me rephrase it,
that is
isn't it
that
more
is
dangerous to have a president, effectively a presidential form of government in a parliamentary democracy because
I
it's not term limited?
absolutely, I totally agree, because you cannot have a parliamentary system of democracy and thrust the presidential system into it just because you have one leader who is very strong. Right? I think that does not serve the purpose of democracy, because the democracy expects you to kind of have a system where people at different layers do their job. A prime minister cannot do the job of a panchayat member. You have panchayats, you have city corporations, you have MLAs, you have MPs, you have ministers and the prime minister. So you cannot delegate what this guy does, all take it up to the prime minister straight away. That does
Which
not
is
serve
what
the
is happening
purpose.
effectively.
So I totally agree with you that it's almost very dangerous, that we are setting up this one person to be the end all and answer to everything, and in that process compromising on the quality of I would say talent that we are sending to the parliament and constitutional institutions.
So,
So
so,
I
how,
think that's a good
so how
point.
do you see this playing out? Like, so we have, personality politics. We have Modi versus Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi. So, do you think that this is what's going to happen in subsequent elections? Do you think the opposition parties would try to replicate the success of Modi politics?
I think having a very clear picture of who your leader is going to be always helps, and I think that helped BJP tremendously. um, I think that's probably what other parties should also learn from BJP, and make sure they have a strong leader, that appeals to the entire section of the population. Your party cadres will always root for whoever is at the top of your party. Do they really appeal to the broader general public? Can you bring up leaders who are maybe outside of your political system, that would appeal to general public? I think that would be the key, for the success of a lot of parties, right?
So,
But
so do you think that the Congress party can no longer rely on the name of Gandhi to see them
I
through?
that's where I don't fully agree, because if the Congress party by and large has a democratic process to elect its leader, and that party elects Rahul Gandhi to be the leader, then who are we to question?
No, I think that's, you can look at it that way. That there's nothing wrong in Rahul Gandhi or Sonia Gandhi or Priyanka Gandhi being as duly elected. I think that's a bogus argument to say that the people have selected them. But I think as a leader, you need to hold yourself accountable. If you look at global corporations, when a company does very poorly, a lot of them resign, and in 2014, you can explain the Modi wave, and therefore the Congress was decimated, less than 10% of all seats. Now, 5 years later, after demonetization, economy is in a shambles, unemployment is at record high, and you still are pretty much at the same level. The only increase is in Tamil Nadu because of alliance with DMK. Now, does it not, is it not incumbent on Mr. Rahul Gandhi and Mrs. Sonia Gandhi to take moral responsibility and said this isn't we aren't making any progress, so we need to do something different. I mean,
No,
I think they're running
yeah.
a wonderful
Yeah.
NGO, the Rajiv Gandhi Foundation, doing tremendous work all over the country.
Yeah.
I think they can put in all their efforts in running the NGO and leave there are some spectacularly talented individuals in the Congress party to come to the fore.
No, I think definitely there's got to be a lot of thought to where the Congress party is. Um, I would say every opposition party that has done very poorly has to go do that soul searching, right? Um, you talked about demonetization, right? This is one person making a huge decision for the entire country that pretty much put our economy down, right? What this did, the impacts of demonetization was unimaginable, right? Majority of
And
the
yet, the
It only
BJP has come back
increased,
with a 41%
which is
vote
exactly
share.
where I'm going at, right? The risk of having a strong leader, a leader that does not consult with anybody, um, and takes his own decisions, not caring for any of the financial experts. RBI governors resigned, chief economic advisor resigned. Um, so this is a perfect case of a leader not a leader taking a very unilateral decision, not caring for any of the experts, right? So while we can argue that you need a great leader, you need a leader that can really move things, but if where your train is headed is not in the right direction, you're going to crash into something very bad, right? I hope that part of decision making changes with this government. um, and I think that's where to a certain extent, um, it's also about who you surround with, how you listen to them. um, and way this election was conducted itself is you would question whether people really looked at things like demonetization, things like um, unemployment, things like the national integrity and the spirit of India, right? All of them I think took backseat, and the events that happened maybe 2-3 months before the election took the center stage, right? I'm perfectly fine. If you are a BJP person, BJP supporter, vote for BJP, support BJP. That's fine. But what we have created in this country, in the process of creating this one big huge leader, is we have stopped as a democracy an ability to question. Right? Modi does demonetization. We don't question. Right? Followers of BJP or followers of the other side, we assume that anything and everything they do is right. It's great that they have a great majority, but where we are headed with this kind of a mindset, I think we are headed for a disaster if we don't question. Right? We as people, you're okay to support anybody that you like, but you cannot blindly support them, which is where this country is going, which is I think a huge risk for the country.
So, Mr. Ravindra, so is this a new phenomenon where you have just personality-driven election? Like looking back at previous elections, were there any elections which were issue-driven, where things like unemployment, state of the economy mattered the most?
I think when you fight on real issues, I think people talk about those things. I think
Yeah,
UPA
has it
one.
ever been that way?
It has been. I think if you look back, I think UPA one was more about how Congress opened up the economy. How that we were always an economy that was healthy, but during UPA one, and I think even before UPA one, when Narasimha Rao was the prime minister, Manmohan Singh was the finance minister, the country just opened up, right? That was probably the big argument for them in that particular election. UPA one, again, the economy really took off, and UPA two, they talked about it, right? I don't think there
Yeah.
was one huge leader they could portray and say, vote for this
But
person and nothing else matters, right?
But to go back to Chetan's question, is it the last time the country had such an overwhelming mandate for a party was after the assassination of Mrs. Indira Gandhi? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a national tragedy. She was in office. So if you take that election out of the way, it was still Mrs. Indira Gandhi's election after she was punished once after the emergency. When she came back with a thumping majority, and that was again personality driven mandate. And so I think the question is very valid. Is it a new phenomenon, or by nature, do we look for that kind of strong leader? As and very I'm sure you've noticed it, that Prime Minister Modi never criticizes Indira Gandhi. It's always Rahul Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi, or Nehru, but never Indira Gandhi, because I think he admires that she was such a strong prime minister.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think there have been strong leaders in this country before, and Indira Gandhi, I think, was a very strong leader.
Yeah. So do we crave that? I mean, as a people, do we were UPA one and two aberrations?
Yeah. No,
Uh,
I think people look for strong leaders for sure. I don't dispute that at all. A strong leader with some performance and good issues would do even better.
Mm, yeah. So what does that say about the state of our democracy? Is are we
I in a see. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah are we do we have to settle for these kind of elections from now on, where issues take a back seat?
I hope not. I think if you think about this, just the statements that are made just in the last couple of weeks, right? It it gives a lot of food for thought for all of us. I think people who believe in the idea of India, and what is that idea of India? If we go back to the founding ideals of India, it was based on non-violence. It was based on integrating everyone. We didn't say let Hindus fight the war, and on British, and Muslims and Christians, you don't belong to this fight. We said we will all get together and fight for one India, and that was done in a way that world stood up and saluted us, right? And those very ideas are being questioned now, just in the last couple of days. If last few weeks, I think, um, somebody comes out and says, Godse is a hero, right? And he was a patriot, he is a patriot, and he will be a patriot. And somebody else comes in and
no, and
says,
that person has been elected with a 20%
that's what
majority.
that's what I'm
with a
getting at. So
margin.
that's what I'm getting at. So when we need to really think where our country is going, and there was an MP that came out and said, what was that comment? Rajiv Gandhi killed so many people, and somebody else killed so many people, and Nathuram Godse killed only one person, who is a bigger terrorist. And somebody else comes in and says, oh, after 70 years of India's independence, I'm glad this discussion is happening. And this person is a former minister in Modi's cabinet. And what does BJP do? Amit Shah sends them a letter and says, give me a reply within 10 days. Right? That's all. That's it. And that within 10 days would be after the election results. And here is what has happened. All three people have won the election. So what we stood for, again, I do Gandhi is probably my hero, just with the way he shook the world gently, right? That's what he said.
Yes.
Right? He really shook the world gently. and the whole world looked up to him. And when there was so much of unrest in the world, Gandhi was one person everybody looked to, because he was facing this, huge, big kingdom with just a simple tool as non-violence, right? Now those very ideals are being questioned, and those are very widely accepted. And you have big leaders, leaders who are in very responsible positions making these statements, and the action taken on them is nothing. So I know India is changing, but we as
So let me
people,
put it bluntly to you. I mean, are we headed to a place where you need the Indian version? Is that what you're suggesting? That we need an Indian version of a Holocaust for people to think, because this is democracy. The people have spoken. This is not an EVM manipulated victory. The people have overwhelmingly have considered, and this is not hidden ideas. These are not hidden ideas. People have heard these issues and have voted overwhelmingly for the BJP. Now, there are two ways of looking at it. The optimistic way would be to say, you know what, this is just election strategy of the BJP. They don't really mean it, which I would hope is the case. Because the second alternative is that we're headed towards a Holocaust. That's what you're saying.
no, I wouldn't say that. I think that's
So that's, I
extreme.
mean,
That's very extreme.
then, I mean, if it's just an election
That's
strategy,
very
then that's
extreme,
something
and
which.
I think we still have a lot of right-thinking people in India, um, and I hope
So are we saying that the people actually reject the statements of Pragya Thakur and others, and are voting for um, the hope or the aspirations they see represented by their Prime Minister Modi? And so this, I mean, all of these things are, whatever you need to do, polarize. In Subramanian Swami's words, this is the election strategy of the BJP, to polarize and to come to power. And
No,
then,
yeah, the hope is, with the thumping majority they have, they will get back to the basics. Second term mandate, which is this good, I hope, they get away from all this polarization politics and take everyone together in this country. You have made it, you have won, right? There are real issues. And the biggest issue is, to me, um, this, looking at somebody and saying, if you talk against me, you're a Pakistani. Or, you cannot have an alternative view in this country at all. So I hope, this victory, tells them that, people have, voted for you. You've got a great majority. Now I am going to take everybody along.
Yeah. Coming
Um,
back to what you said earlier, you spoke about the idea of India. So, yeah, regarding that, is there a north south divide? Do we see that in this election?
I think, you can definitely see, a bit of a trend in that, Karnataka is probably an exception. You see Tamil Nadu that has voted, completely, DMK Congress. You see Kerala that has gone completely, Congress. Um, and
Andhra Pradesh, not a
Andhra
single
Pradesh
seat.
is, regional party has come up there. Telangana again TRS. So with the exception of Karnataka, I think, the southern parties have embraced non-BJP, parties.
Not just
Uh,
embrace. I think it's utter, like I mentioned in my opening remarks, I think it's an utter rejection of BJP, not even one seat
right.
for the BJP. Even they held a seat in Kanyakumari, even that was uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
taken away.
Yeah.
So are we having two different ideas of India at this point?
No, I think hard to say, especially when you look at Karnataka. How can Karnataka be aligned to the rest of India while, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, these states have not aligned, with the rest of India, right? I think it's probably the leadership within those states, um, and the relevance of BJP in those states. With BJP, having ruled Karnataka once, I think they do have, grassroots here, and I think, their party, cadres must have, worked really hard.
But clearly, if we can just spend some time in Karnataka, because Nsoj is in Bangalore, and um, Karnataka is our home base, so to say. Um, Clearly, 1+1 hasn't been 2. Congress plus JDS hasn't, that vote share hasn't, the arithmetic. If you just did a simple math,
Yeah.
the results would have been very different, including in our constituency, Bangalore North.
Yeah.
If you add JDS and Congress from 2018, was there a 3 lakh, 4 lakh buffer that the combined
No,
parties would have had?
no, I think the margin has come down. And I think Bangalore North, I would still think, a lot of JDS people have actually, leaders have campaigned for Congress. And, the coming together of two parties has been better in Bangalore North, maybe as compared to many other
But
constituencies.
the people.
But by and large, I think, with the kind of results we are seeing, 3 Congress, right?
Yes.
3 Congress, 1 JDS, and 24, maybe 2 Congress, 1 JDS.
In Bangalore.
No,
For
Karnataka,
Karnataka,
I'm talking
yeah.
about. 2 Congress, 1 JDS, one other, and 24
BJP.
BJP. Um, I think, people really need to look deep into it and see what really happened. Because if you just compare the numbers, and when JDS Congress decided to go together on parliament elections, the sentiments were very different. People thought the combination is going to get more than 20 seats, right? That's not been the case.
But that's again the emotional, because JDS voter is typically an anti-Congress voter. A JDS voter, if you look at it, traditionally, historically, a Janata Dal voter would be an anti-Congress voter. So, did we not, in Karnataka, all the analysts were thinking of this arithmetic, but the leaders
Yeah.
may work together. But I think there's
Yeah.
an emotional issue here as well.
Yeah, no, the numbers don't add up for sure. Just looking at the number and looking at the results, right?
Yeah.
Why it happened, I think it's an interesting question. I think in some constituencies maybe it has worked. In the other constituencies, maybe it has not. And there was a lot of confusion. I think if you look at the statements, not the top line leadership was making, but one layer down was making. People, I would imagine, people would be in a lot of confusion, right? We are fighting with them, but why are you giving a statement to the contrary?
Yes.
So a lot of that has happened as well, I would assume.
Yeah, speaking about numbers, now there are those people like noted cephalogist Yogendra Yadav, who says that our electoral system itself needs to be reformed. He talks about proportional representation, whereas now we have first past the post. So, what do you think about that?
What is the proportional representation? I don't think I've heard of his.
Yeah, so
Theory.
what happens in our style of democracy is a candidate could win a seat even by one vote.
Yeah.
He would
And you
get,
represent the entire constituency.
yeah. So a proportional representation looks more at the proportions of votes. So the
So if you
BJP,
got 30% votes,
Okay.
you'll have 30% representation. If you had 40%, you have,
Just in terms of the vote share.
yeah, never
Yes.
mind the
Yeah,
exact thing. The exact. There are many proposals for reforming.
So it's a more equal.
The electoral system. But generally, do you think that our electoral system itself needs some reform, or is it all okay?
I think the way the elections are handled, I think definitely need a reform.
The process, but
The
structurally.
process structurally, you could look at constituencies by population and see if they're still rightly structured. One may have many people versus another constituency that could have very fewer number of people. So you could always do that. I think they do have a the constitutional process for that, right? I think they call it delimitation or something like that. The present Bangalore North that we have now looked very different, maybe about 15 years ago.
Okay.
So they keep doing it. Outside of that, I think if you just look at the proportional representation that you were talking about, I mean, US is the best example, right?
Yes.
There is a popular vote and there is the collegium.
No, in some states, the winner takes it all.
Right.
The US. But in others, you are proportionate. So, for example, the number of delegates, it depends on your vote share.
Correct.
So, especially when we're looking at such a polarized situation, would it be a more fair system to have proportionate representation. Because if you look at Parliament, for example, today, the number of women,
Yeah, no,
very small
absolutely,
number.
absolutely.
Number of Muslims,
Yeah.
negligible. Number of Christians, negligible.
Yeah.
And still, these are huge in absolute terms,
Yeah,
huge
yeah.
numbers of people
Yeah.
who end up being underrepresented. So, but perhaps this is a conversation for much later.
Sure.
Okay, I mean, just to get back to coalition politics, well, can you just share some light on some of the good work that the BJP has done in terms of smartly putting together coalitions, whereas the opposition has failed to do that?
I think for as strong and as the position of strength BJP was in, I think they played in building these coalitions. I think they had a formula of compromise. I think it was quite evident from Maharashtra to Bihar to um, maybe the way they went ahead in Uttar Pradesh with Ram Vilas Paswan and these guys. Um, so I think they probably lost a little bit in the way they agreed on the seats, but I think they had a huge electoral gain because of that strategy.
Yeah.
That's
Even
probably
in Bihar, I think
even
they
in
gave
Bihar.
up plenty of seats.
Exactly. Yeah,
And in
Nitish.
Maharashtra as well.
Nitish, exactly. So on the contrary, I think Congress probably
But they
UP is
was
UP is a
too
very good example.
arrogant. I mean, did they overestimate the? There was definitely an apparent sense of Rahul Gandhi becoming more popular. Did they sort of overestimate their own
No, maybe
strength?
they were put in that position too. I think Timothy, because if you look at UP, Congress didn't say we don't want to be in an alliance. It's
Were they
Mayawati
insulted
and
because they were only given 2 seats?
no, but Mayawati and Akhilesh said we don't want you guys, right? And they just gave Amethi and Rai Bareli, just like that. It was not
But
a
if you look at it, they on going on their own, they have not even held on to Amethi.
yeah.
So there can be an argument made that they could have, maybe it would have been a very different election if the Congress had worked with the SP and
Yeah, I
the
think
BSP.
I think Delhi also was one where
With
there was
AAP.
some disagreement because AAP wanted a coalition in Haryana and
Haryana.
Punjab as well
Yes,
to make a deal in Delhi.
Hmm.
So
and it backfired on everybody.
yeah, yeah.
So, Mr. Ravi and also Mr. Timothy, what do you think this? What should the Congress do going forward? Should they try a more kind of grassroots kind of campaign in the future?
I have been pretty. I've put my neck on the line, and
Mhm.
I've been, I think, very clear in my opening remarks to say that I think the leadership needs to
It
change.
is just the leadership.
I don't because that's if you look at the anti-Congress campaign, it has been exclusively focused on the leadership, and clearly, you may think that resonates once, maybe and then you overcome it. But when it happens twice, if you make the same mistake repeatedly, that's called madness. You can make new mistakes, but when you've done it twice and it's the exact same result, somebody has got to if there was an upward trend, for example, if your vote share has gone up by 15-20% or 10% or whatever, then you can say it doesn't matter, first past the post. But when you've been thoroughly thrashed.
So you say the Gandhi family provides a very large target for the
I-
BJP.
That's where I probably
Disagree.
The reason is, see, what did let's go back to the philosophy of parties, right? If I look at the philosophy of Congress, it's about unity. Maybe it's about taking everyone together. It's about if there is a party that is very close to the founding ideals of this country, it probably is Congress. Um, and if you look at the way philosophy of BJP,
Do we not trust the emerging leadership in the Congress to reflect those ideals going forward, or is it only the Gandhi family that can truly preserve that. And
No, I'm not saying it's only Gandhi family. I think it's everybody in Congress has to very passionately fight for these ideals, which is where I think
true.
Congress party lacks, right? The philosophy of BJP is Hindutva. They're very clear about it, right? We are Hindutva. RSS backs it. Hindu Sangatans back it, and they are able to very clearly articulate this is what we stand for. This is what we stand by, and they are passionate about it, right? And I think our country is very diverse, and different colors, different types of people, different ways of things are the strength of this country. And I believe in the concept of unity. While division is sold so passionately with all kinds of marketing gizmos, unity is not sold with the same type of passion, right? And why? That's my question, right? What?
So perhaps one way of looking at it is, I mean, you do have the ideological parent of the BJP, which is the RSS, sort of cultivating that pride and muscular nationalism and uh, and and Hindutva and what have you. Um, would there be an argument, therefore, to say let the Gandhi family work, whether through the Rajiv Gandhi Foundation or whatever, to be the RSS counterbalance of ideology, where you're actually working towards, you know, uh, uh, articulating the idea of India, and you have the Congress as a political force with fresh young leadership coming in and completely sort of subscribing to the idea of the united India. And I think that's
Exactly.
probably a way
I
forward,
think
like a
Timothy,
compromise to go
absolutely,
forward.
Timothy. If to your point, why cannot unity be the muscular, nationalism for India?
Yeah,
Why should it only be division, right?
election
You
strategy.
know,
Fighting
I think
fire
it's
why,
with
why?
fire.
No, I think unity is an equally syllable thing,
Mhm.
right? Why not?
yes.
I mean, you go out on the street, what you see is not division.
Mhm.
What you see is unity, right? You see, people of different religions. We see people of, different ways of life. So,
Yeah, the conversation is
I
very
think,
different on social media, and you meet the same people
and what
over lunch, and
happens
it's a very different conversation.
exactly,
So
exactly what happens on social media. There are 10 people jumping in for division, and the person who believes in unity just, takes a back seat and says, whoa, this is too loud. I can't handle this, right? So why cannot we be as passionate as well? And that's the same thing I would say to BJP as well at this time, because you've got a thumping majority. Don't divide this country, right? Because I'll say this. We don't do progress for the next 5 years. The country is still intact, right? Somebody that comes after next 5 years will still build the country. The risk of not developing the country for the next 5 years, let's assume nothing is done in the next 5 years, right? The risk of that is much less than breaking the country on divisive lines, right? Once you break the heart and soul of this country, it's very difficult to put those pieces back.
I agree with you, but I also think the reason why the BJP went, I mean, maybe the last year in particular, maybe the run up to the elections were very divisive and polarizing campaign, was because of um, the the policies, the economic policies having failed. It was a band-aid to distract from. Um, so I don't think there was an intention of the BJP to run the economy to the ground,
Yeah.
but that happened because I think demonetization was a misadventure. GST, the rollout was a misadventure, and that basically ran the economy to the ground. And they were, and therefore, the BJP resorted because they couldn't run
Yeah.
on their policies.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
going forward, I think it's the hope of every Indian that the BJP, if there's a word of advice to them, is have competence in the people that you appoint, not just people who are going to um, to be
Yes,
in awe
Yeah.
of the Prime Minister.
Yeah,
With,
yeah.
yes, Prime Ministers everywhere.
Yeah.
I think we need to. I do hope that the BJP realizes the mistakes it made from 2016. I think till 2016, the economy was doing really well, and
Yeah.
then you had demonetization.
Yeah.
So if they can sort of pull back and let professionals run um, run the country
Yeah.
in much the same way as the Congress party, identified Manmohan Singh and Chidambaram to
Agree.
run the country. I think then we all need our country to move forward.
Absolutely. You know,
And
the bottom
I do
line, that's
believe
what
that if
we
the
all care
economy
about,
is
right?
strong,
Yeah.
then, like I said, either it's truly hateful or it's an election strategy hatefulness.
Yeah.
I believe it's an election strategy hatefulness, and that's to cover up the inadequacies and incompetence in governance. So I do hope that this next 5 years, that the BJP is going to have high quality technocrats come in and do the best they can, and let's not glorify common sense and things like that. We
Yeah.
need technically sound people to run the country, so a strong economy, a strong economic policy, and hopefully we'll get away from this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with this kind of majority, uh, even people that did not vote for you also want this country to move forward.
Yeah.
And you are the prime minister even for the people that did not vote for you, right?
Which is
So
still 60% of the country. So
exactly.
that is still.
So take
uh,
everybody along, and let's not make it a distraction anytime, right? It's very easy to distract people from the main issues, but people's lives depend on the core issues, right? Keeping the country intact in terms of our unity and integrity. There are some very basic things, education and housing, poverty alleviation, things like this. Focus on them and show real metrics, right? um, Show real metrics so that the next 5 years, we can look back, and then the election at the end of the next 5 years will be on the real issues, and not on distractions that people have to face.
Yeah. So the BJP has its work cut out for it. It's looking at 345. The BJP and its allies looking at that figure. They have got a majority both in both houses.
Not
They've-
yet.
Not yet.
Not
They
in
will.
the Rajya Sabha.
Not in the Rajya Sabha, but it's not as bad as it used to be, right?
In due course, I think it's a rotation system.
Yeah.
So it's a different system.
I think this 5 years, I think they'll have a majority in the Rajya Sabha as well,
Okay.
which with which they need to act much more responsibly
Yes.
when it comes to taking important decisions.
Yes, and there would be no excuses for them. So they have to deliver in these 5 years.
But
Right.
I do hope that the economy does well, because it's all fun for us, and I think it's a very politically it's expedient that you want the government to fail. But I think to take very seriously Mr. Ravindra's warning that if we fail, we'll end up with again we'll have bandages of nationalism and division. We would rather have a strong economy and then have the prime minister in 5 years and the BJP defend the policies and have a substantive debate in 5 years.
Absolutely.
And so before we wrap up, I'm going to put you on the spot
Okay.
and ask you for a prediction. In how many months are we going to have the next election in Karnataka?
Don't know. I think in 4 years, I would say.
In 4 years.
Yes.
Okay, on that happy note, it's been a pleasure doing this election coverage on behalf of all of us, the staff and the students of National School of Journalism. We thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Ravindra. And it's back to the grind. And over and out from National School of Journalism, Bangalore. Bye-bye. Have a great day.